Clock says we're ready. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to your city council meeting. Good evening. For November 10th, 2025, I'm Mayor Blackburn. I'll call us to order. Very first thing we're going to all do is turn off our cell phones. Then we're going to acknowledge the land where we work. As we gather today, we respectfully acknowledge that the land on which the city of Hood River sits is the ancestral home of indigenous peoples. This includes the Nez Perce, Umatilla, Warm Springs, Yakima, and other tribes who stewarded this land for generations. We recognize the lasting impact of colonialism and commit to working together for a more just and sustainable future. We will also pause to acknowledge that we live in the sanctuary state of Oregon and we have passed an inclusivity resolution, and our law enforcement does not collaborate with federal immigration enforcement. I would like to add something to the agenda because I have heard a lot of ICE today. And I don't know exactly what to say about that, but it seems like nothing is the wrong amount to say about that. So I'm not sure the best place for it, and maybe right now is an okay moment with council's permission. This is the closest it's come to me. My friend lost a colleague to, La Migra today, and like 20 people, or who knows exactly, but I've seen video, I've heard names, I guess this is a check-in. How are we all doing as we do our regular work of the city with this fairly notable day in our community?
I would like to start us off with, the last couple of days I've received a lot of text messages and phone calls about individuals who are terrified. My family members, a couple meetings ago, 3 meetings ago, we were really clear and gave direction to staff around educational videos that was going to highlight some of the same information that we're seeing in some of our other cities across the state, across the US, quite frankly, and really disappointed that we have no communications, no level of continued reaffirming that our commitment to the safety of our community members. And it feels like if we get something up now that we're being reactive rather than proactive. So I think one of the questions that I have in all this is what has happened to that information that we were very clear, the 7 of us gave clear direction that that's what we wanted to see to ensure that our community members have all the education that they need should they have to record an ICE interaction. What are the things that individuals should be paying attention to? What are the hotline numbers that folks should be calling? And reiterating that we are a sanctuary state, same as the city, and that we've taken resolutions for this. We cannot change people coming into the community, but what is happening right now is racial profiling. And that should terrify all of us. That is not immigration enforcement. Community members are being kidnapped, and we've seen footage from many cities throughout the state, and now we're seeing that here locally. So I'm quite disappointed that, again, we cannot do anything to stop federal agents from coming into the community, but we should have been really clear about messaging weeks ago prior to them actually being here.
Doug?
I actually, excuse me, prepared a statement that I wanted to read during council call, but I'll read it now since it's on topic. I've decided to abstain from standing and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of our council meetings. And the recital of the Pledge of Allegiance is not mandated for our governing body by state or by federal law, but is mandated by the City of Hood River law. I refuse to stand in symbolic protest of the assaults on our freedom and the Constitution by the current presidential administration. At the top of my list of grievances is indeed the treatment of our Latino community by the U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Approximately 1 in 4 city residents identify as Hispanic or Latino. That population percentage increases if Hood River County is considered. In the past few days, local organizers such as the Hood River Latino Network and Tamira have taken to social media to inform residents about the increase in ICE activity in Hood River and the Dalles. In fact, after an ICE arrest at Mercado Guadalajara yesterday, that business was frightened into closing their business for the day. I've heard they've closed early today as well. And I urge all listening and online to support that business to shoulder the burden of lost revenues, really due to the terrorization of their client base by the federal government. I grew up in the near southwestern suburbs of Chicago and was a resident of the city of Chicago for 8 years. I was also a resident of Portland for 5 years. I know these cities are visible and in the crosshairs of DHS and ICE, but we need to recognize that our small communities are no safer. If you've been following the news from the Portland metro area, in fact, now the national news, a Latino teenager named Manny Chavez bravely spoke out at the Hillsborough City Council meeting last Tuesday, and his comments went viral across the Pacific Northwest and the country. And as a city councilor here in Hood River, my heart sank as this really brave teen pleaded with his city council to help his community. I know that cities have extremely limited powers to combat the atrocities being committed by our own federal government, but I feel like it's worth our time and our taxpayer money to do as much as we possibly can. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we're fortunate to live in the first state to enact a statewide sanctuary status. ORS 181A.820 and HB 3265, which is the Sanctuary Promise Act, make it clear that state and local law enforcement agencies cannot use their resources to assist with federal civil immigration enforcement. I'm confident that our city resources, including the Hood River City Police, are in full compliance with this directive, but I also don't think that our assistance to the community should stop there. I want our Latino community and their allies to feel that the local government supports them. Like Manny Chavez, I want them to feel empowered to use their 3 minutes to speak in public forum, even though our city council cannot stop ICE. My hope would be to prepare something like my former home Chicago has done with the Protecting Chicago initiative, enacted by a mayoral executive order on August 30th. That's, quote, Protecting Chicago aims to make available information and resources that allow every resident, regardless of background, immigration status, or neighborhood, to live with safety, dignity, and peace of mind. This initiative is Chicago's commitment to promote well-being of all of our communities and safeguard the rights of all Chicagoans in response to threats arising from federal actions and inactions. And on October 6th, 2025, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order, 2025.8, prohibiting the use of city parking lots, vacant lots, and garages for civil immigration enforcement staging areas, processing locations, or operations bases. And a key feature of this order is to support private property owners, tenants, and community institutions who wish to protect their spaces from being used for civil immigration enforcement. I will provide the website of Protecting Chicago initiative to the staff and to the council for their consideration. And I'd also like to note that the Hood River County School District released a statement and resources reaffirming their commitment to student safety and inclusivity at 2 p.m. I've spoken with a lot of my children's friends, and they're terrified to go to school. They're terrified that their friends are going to be taken from them or their friends' parents are going to be taken from them. It's reaching everybody in our community, from the youngest to the oldest members of our community. And though I know our hands are tied in many ways, I feel like we have to do absolutely everything that we can with swift action right now, because a lot of our community is really, really, really terrified.
Would anyone else like to speak?
Mayor, if I could make some comments just about some of the public education that we have been doing.
Thank you.
I'm definitely hearing a desire for more and a desire for videos. But we have been sharing Sanctuary Promise information on our social media account with 4 kind of main messages. 1, that Oregon is a sanctuary state and what that means. 2, that our police do not cooperate with ICE, nor are we informed of ICE activities. Resources that are available. We've been relying on a list from the Oregon Department of Justice. And then the council resolutions and the statements you all have made about affirming and reaffirming us as a welcoming community. We also have put Sanctuary Promise brochures at City Hall and the police department for the public and for our staff. And we are planning our next newsletter, which will include immigration resources and the resolution that the city council passed earlier this year. And then on the front page of our city website, we have the DOJ sanctuary promise information and immigrant rights information on the slider on the website. So we've done some things, but I'm definitely hearing that that is inadequate and we will keep working on it. But I appreciate this conversation.
Thank you, Abigail. Two thoughts come to mind for me is, I believe that ICE now has a federal budget, something the size of like the US Marines. Like their resources so far outstrip. I mean, of course, I agree with Councilor Stupina that I have every confidence that Chief Holste's folks are obeying the Oregon law, but I feel like we're bringing a popsicle to a gunfight. And I don't want to encourage people to feel at all like reassured that our guys aren't going to do it, because their guys are numerous and vast and wearing masks. So it's quite distressing to me. Doug?
I agree. I feel that in this moment, though, what we should be doing is, working to demonstrate, working to inform, working with local community members and organizations that are helping to inform the public about what they can, what they can't do. It's about information. It's about reaffirmation about what the city's commitment is. And I feel like the residents of Hood River need to hear that from us to have faith in the other things that we do in government. That the people sitting up here are doing everything that we can from this spot, and if we choose to, in our personal lives, to be able to assist them in this extremely trying time. So I think part of it is a dialogue and understanding what the community needs from us, and educating them about what we can, what we can't do, I think is part of that process. Seeing, Manny Chavez speak in Hillsborough, first thing I thought of is it's not much Hillsborough City Council can do to combat this problem, but it really started a very big dialogue in the community. It started a dialogue in the United States. And whatever we can do, we need to be demonstrating that we are doing that. And how we do that, I think, depends on what the community members, what input we get. I would urge people to come speak to us about what they would like from their city to be able to be done in this time. And again, to your point, there's not a whole lot we can do, but there's a lot we can do in terms of sharing information, reaffirming our commitment to the cause and our citizens of Hood River is how I feel.
Thank you. Gladys?
I echo all of that. And, what are we doing to making it really clear to people that they can come here, right? What are the other ways that we are also willing to be flexible and accommodate that people might not want to show up in person because they are afraid? They know that ICE immigration officers are in the gorge. I personally told my mom, stay home. My parents, stay home. Don't, you can use your PTO, stay home. It's better. And they're citizens. I think it's going to take for us to think about different resources and other ways that we haven't thought of before, because these are unusual circumstances. And as you mentioned, Mayor, the resources that they have are significant. But doing nothing and just expecting, oh, folks are going to show up, that's being complicit. And that's, in my opinion, just not leadership. We have to be willing to take some bold decisions to ensure that people do feel safe in our community, because our community thrives off of the diversity of those that live here, the people that work, and all of that.
Anybody else? Amanda?
I don't really have too much to add because it's just like, what can we do? But I just want to voice my support of doing what we can and agree with Doug that I don't feel good saying the Pledge of Allegiance and standing and honoring that when our country is treating people the way that it is. And I wish we could stop it in some way, but I don't know.
Well, I appreciate you just saying something instead of saying absolutely nothing at all. This isn't time for us to be afraid.
And it's, yeah. I wish I had some, something valuable to contribute of like an idea or something, but I just feel so like kind of powerless in this situation, even though like we have the power to our city, but we kind of don't. And it's just really like a weird place to be in, so.
Well said, and that's why, similar to what Counselor Stupina was mentioning, is how are we collaborating with other agencies to hear from our community members what they need and want from us? We have assumptions, right? Even myself, of what I think folks need, but until we ask and that we think of innovative ways to create those levels of partnerships to ensure that organizations that do have trust and rapport with Latino communities are the ones that are asking, and that we're receiving that feedback, and that we continue to show action. Because if the people are telling us, here's what we need, and then we choose, oh, we can't, we're going to tarnish whatever level of trust people had to begin with to even say anything at all.
Some of what I learned about the most recent events I got from my equity advisors, and I will reach out to them again to say, hey, please be in touch and share with me your thoughts so that we can be as prepared as possible. But I have to object. I don't think we should reassure people that they are safe, because that is not true. They're safe from us, but we have a very small scepter and hammer. All right. I would welcome continued follow-up. This is totally extemporaneous, and I hope I didn't spring anything on you, but it was like, anyway, so that happened. We're going to go on with our meeting. Please be in touch. And Doug, if you wanted to submit some of those things you mentioned, and I look forward to receiving them.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, everybody. Okay. Business from the, any other agenda additions or corrections, Abigail? Business from the audience. Great. So while you're signing up, if I could have Claudia Monk, please come forward. Yes. Yes. So touch the white dot. Okay, touch the white dot so it turns green. There it is. And tell us your name and.
Hi,
Thanks.
Claudia Monk, Country Club Road resident.
Thank you.
Tonight, you are considering the proportionate share resolution. I handed you guys an 11x17 piece of paper to fund this roundabout, this lovely gateway feature at Mount Adams and Cascade. And I support this tool. I've participated in proportionate share across the city. I think it's a great tool. It's practical, fair, efficient way to have development and developers contribute to needed transportation improvements. However, as currently drafted, this resolution in the packet addresses only a single intersection when the city's adopted plans are transportation system plan and then the ODOT IAMP, which is, I think, indirectly or directly adopted, actually show 5 intersections, which I've marked with those red circles and labeled as they correspond to TSP improvements with some like fake cost estimates, right? So I'm asking you tonight to consider some detail as you discuss. I'm not really asking you to change anything. I'm just asking you to consider detail in the resolution as you progress toward a final design and a final mechanism toward fixing and unlocking the transportation puzzles on the west side of Hood River. So option 1, you follow this current TSP and you build these 5 intersections, which are indicated on that map. It might take a century, literally. They are indicated in today's dollars at about 9.1 million. So here we go, $50 million for 5 roundabouts. Well, 4 of them are considered roundabouts in the TSP. Seems quite expensive, time consuming, and uses a lot of land for pavement. As much as I love roundabouts, which many of you know, this seems pretty unrealistic to do 5 roundabouts within a 1,000-foot radius. The northmost one being at Westcliff and the bridge from the intersection. Option 2, so we sketched this little base map with the help of Carlos, and it shows 1, but there might actually need to be 2 roundabouts, plus this funny little couplet, which is essentially what is the Heights, right? The Heights is sort of a one-way couplet. 12th goes one way, 13th goes the other way. So is downtown The Dalles. It's not an uncommon solution. This is sort of almost like a marriage between a giant roundabout and a couplet design that I think will consolidate the traffic control issues needed in this area. And most importantly, opens up the surrounding land, for example, the Gill property, which has been sitting vacant for some decades, opening up for high intensity development, which would activate the streets and grow the property tax base, segue into West Side urban renewal. Both of these approaches, option one, TSP, option two, giant roundabout couplet thing, solve traffic, but only the latter, in my opinion, supports near-term keyword development of the neighborhood and therefore tax base growth and success of the urban renewal projects. The couplet plus 2 roundabouts makes the land productive, quicker than the current plan. 5 roundabouts makes much of the land pavement. You can see in your plan, an unexpectedly large amount of pavement is required for a refuge lane. And importantly, blocks access to vacant commercial parcels that urban renewal is really banking on to solve its $146 million bond. Please consider expanding the scope of your proportionate share resolution. I'm not asking you to make immediate design decisions. I'm just asking you to keep this lovely funding tool mechanism in place, but give the city flexibility to evolve where those fees go, not just to a single roundabout, to a larger transportation solution. Thank you for listening to me. I know you guys have a lot on your mind.
Thank you, Patty. Lorraine.
Thanks for leaving the lights on.
Yeah, she left the lights on.
I just wanted to comment around ICE as a business owner downtown. I too, Doug, am really struggling with Allegiance as well. My entire family, every aunt and uncle literally fought in a war for this country to keep our country safe and for democracy. And this is really a very painful time for all of us. As a business owner, it would be really helpful for us to have tools to know what we say, what we do. What can we say? What can we do? I think there's some fear for us that we just don't know what we can do. And I don't know if that comes from law enforcement or where that comes from, but it would be helpful so that we know how to protect our employees and what to say if ICE comes in our business. You know, how do we keep them out of our business? Can we, you know, do we post the signs that are being handed out downtown? I don't know. I mean, does that just make you a target? So if the city could kind of help us learn how to communicate, that would be really, really helpful.
Has Visit Hood River had anything to say on this, Lorraine?
I'm sorry?
Visit Hood River, the Chamber of Commerce.
If they have, it may have been in, it may have been in social media. I'm not sure.
Right, thank you.
Thanks for the time.
Thanks for coming. All right, we have a presentation from Tri-County Hazardous Waste.
Mayor Blackburn and councilors want to introduce to you tonight Christina Fiebig from the Tri-County Household Hazardous Waste and Recycling Program. Christina is going to give us a quick update as she does each year on the status of the program and with some emphasis on recycling. As you're aware, the Recycling Modernization Act got underway this year. New statewide recycling list started being used in July, and it's taking a little bit of time to get that off the ground statewide. Christina is going to talk a bit about what's happening locally.
Thank you. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you for the introduction, Kevin, and thank you, council, for having me here tonight. I'm going to share the presentation I have for the evening. Alrighty, so on a lighter note, let's talk about hazardous waste. As Kevin introduced me, I'm Christina Fiebig. I'm the solid waste coordinator for the Tri-County Hazardous Waste and Recycling Program. And thank you for having me here tonight. I would like to give a brief introduction about our program, as well as provide an overview for citizens who may not be aware of our program. We are a three-county, nine-jurisdiction program and have been serving the region for over 2 decades. The core of our program is to provide hazardous waste events between April and November to households, small businesses, and agricultural producers several times a year. The goal is to remove hazardous waste like pesticides, chemicals, and other dangerous materials from our 3 waste sheds. We're also tasked with providing recycling education in partnership to the services that Waste Connections provides. There are many additional things we do to support proper disposal, such as the subsidizing the cost of Freon appliances, sharps, and providing reusable materials for events. We also allow for e-waste at our events. Last year, we collected a little over 1,700 pounds of material. This year so far, we've collected 150,000 pounds of material. Our events are held at a variety of community locations, including the Dallas Transfer Station and the Hood River Transfer Station. We require registration for all at our transfer station events. This is to ensure safety and to reduce traffic. And agricultural and producers and businesses are required to submit applications 1 week prior to the events. Other events we've done. So this year we partnered with a local Girl Scout troop in the Dalles to host a recycled art event. 16 girls participated with 6 adults, including myself. The event was successful in teaching the girls how to upcycle in fun, creative ways. Our program also supports Waste Connections by advertising the free mattress recycling event they had in September. And that was at the Dalles Disposal and Hood River Garbage. In the future, we will continue to support Waste Connections as well as provide recycling education and hazardous waste education to younger generations. The very next event we'll be having is this Friday in Hood River. Registration is closed for business and agricultural producers, but households can still register online, and we still have spots open, so make sure you get your slot. We have refreshed our twice yearly newsletter. This newsletter goes out to all addresses in our counties and has our hazardous waste schedule, as well as helpful hints about recycling and hazardous waste disposal. The information is provided in both English and Spanish, so we can reach a broader demographic. Now the update on recycling. So the Recycling Modernization Act, also known as the RMA, has now taken place. And for households and the transfer stations, they will collect the USCL, the Universal Statewide Collection List. Recycle On, the logo you see on screen, is the educational public-facing organization helping Oregonians feel confident in recycling. So you might be wondering, what is new about this list? Well, for starters, this is the same list across Oregon. What is new for our counties is plastic tubs without lids made of PET number 1, HDP number 2, or PP number 5. Buckets, pails, storage containers made of HDP number 2 or PP number 5. Aseptic Gables style cartons such as alternative milks, broths, and other juice. Nursery packaging and trays made of HDP number 2 and PP number 5. Scrap metal weighing under 10 pounds or less and 18 inches or less in length. No sharps or tanglers are allowed. You can remember the phrase, if the lid screws on, leave it on. It's a little different than what we have been doing. Please make sure the items are rinsed, dried, and clean before recycling. This will help reduce contamination efforts. Everything else on the list is still accepted except aerosol cans and tin foil. So you might be wondering what your role is in our organization. For starters, it's to appoint a member to our steering committee, which is Kevin, and he does a wonderful job, so shout out to him. As your guys' representatives, he participates in our annual DEQ shed reporting, as well as helps spread our educational outreach materials. So feel free to keep in contact with us. This is our phone number, website, and email. Email will be changing the @handle on the 29th of this month. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it will be changing a bit. But the info@tricountyrecycle.com will not be changing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, quite active on there if you want some fun educational materials. Any questions?
Thank you, Christina. Gladys.
Thanks. So I see that you have an Instagram. So is that this recent information that you shared with us, specifically that one pager, is that something that you've all done like a social media video about for latest updates?
Yes, I try to post 2 videos of like my face on there
Yeah.
every week. So I tried to do one about recycling and bits of about that.
Yeah,
I haven't done one full video on all of the new stuff, but I've done like chunks.
Yeah, well, as we know, social media is one of the greatest ways to reach community members, and this is really important information. And maybe we could figure out how we, as the city, could share this video to ensure that folks are up to date on some of the latest changes, specifically what you just presented around some of the plastics. Can you go back a couple slides? The one that said 150,000 pounds. So do you know how much like contamination has been reduced over time, or at least in the last year with these numbers?
When you say contamination, do you mean materials pulled
Yes.
out of the waste shed?
Mm.
So this would be the number as of 10/28 for this year. For last year, I can't remember
Okay.
the exact number.
Okay,
But this is the amount that we have collected at our hazardous waste events so far.
perfect. Thank you. That's everything. Thanks.
Doug.
Thank you for being here. Is there a particular category or thing that people throw into recycling that in this community or around here that causes the biggest amount of headache for things like contamination? You know, I know that recycling is really challenging. I think the new law is going to make things a lot easier for people to throw some more things away. But is there a problem spot people should look out for?
Clamshells at the moment.
Okay.
That's kind of the big thing. People think they're recyclable because there's a lot of greenwashing out there. You see like the recycling symbol on there. But that is one of the biggest ones. I would have to get in contact with our partners at Waste Connections to know which exactly, but clamshells is one of the big ones.
Yeah, I feel like if we disseminate any information, you know, stop throwing this away, Hood River, throw this in the garbage in the recycling bin, no, would be probably a good thing.
So this is all changing. The Hood River garbage will be considered a pro depot in time. Hopefully within the next couple years it will get situated, but there will be more to be accepted. So stay tuned. But for the meantime, we have this list.
Thank you.
I can see the video. It writes itself. You can be like the doofus. And Christina can be like, no, Doug.
Goofus and Gallant.
No, Doug, don't do that, Doug.
If you want
Don't
to
be a
collaborate.
Doug.
Goofus and Gallant. We can stay with that.
Good. Anything else, Amanda?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for being here. I feel like recycling has been really challenging recently for, I don't know, a long time. Like people think you can recycle all this stuff and really the list is small. And I feel like getting the information out there for what you can actually recycle and what you can't is really important. And I'm very excited to see more things included on the recycling list. And I just want to verify, like, this is now, yes, we can put this in recycling tonight. We can.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
But, and then you're going to add more things in the future.
So the things that will be added in the future will be specifically at the transfer stations, and you'll see signs for it once it gets posted. We'll have like a whole little media blurb about it. But for the meantime, this is what you can put in your bins tonight. Glass does not need to be separate for our counties.
Oh, okay, that's good. And so you're saying the additional things we'll have to take directly to the transfer station?
Correct.
Okay. And yeah, I just like, I don't know, for a long time, there has been another recycling group, like collecting all the stuff that you couldn't put in the city recycling, which I really appreciate. So I just want to give a shout out to those people too. And they, I don't know if they're still doing it. I'm a little bit unclear on that, but yeah, I don't know. It's, and oh, I have a really weird specific question. So like the sour cream container, you're saying if it has a lid, you can screw it on, you keep it on like a drink bottle or something, right? If it's a lid that snaps on and it's made out of the same material.
Not
that also
snap
recycled?
on, no.
Okay.
No snap, screw, yes.
Okay, but you can't just leave it separate. That's a different material than the container?
Correct. So lids at the moment need to be thrown away.
Okay.
The tub itself is recyclable, but for the bottles, the screw on,
Or okay.
screw it on. Mhm. Thank you.
What about batteries? One of the slides mentioned non-lithium ion batteries. So like we got the AA in the clock, we got the iPhone, we got the like rechargeable head, like, do we put all of those on hazardous waste day or can the AA just go in the trash?
So alkaline batteries, so the AA, AAA, V9, those batteries, you can take them all to the transfer station. There's a bucket right by kind of the door where you check in. You can
Oh,
bring,
all the time, not just on special day.
correct.
Got
But
it.
lithium ion batteries, you would take to our events.
Great. Thank you so
So
much.
rechargeable batteries.
It's been like one of those wondering things. Other? Thanks for your good work. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Any other questions? Have a great night. Thank you.
That takes us to our consent agenda, I think, Abigail?
That's correct. And I want to just note one typo in the minutes. On page 13, it says mythology instead of methodology.
More mythology. All right, we do have an OLCC permit application, so I will take that off and request a motion to approve items 1 and 2.
I move to approve items number 1 and 2 on the consent agenda.
Moved by Paulson,
Second.
second by Stepina. Discussion? Amanda, excuse me.
I guess I do have a question about this with the roundabout proportionate share and what Claudia came to ask or speak
Yeah.
about. If we approve this proportionate share, is the plan flexible or is it for one specific plan?
I think the proportionate share district is for traffic control. I don't think it's specific to a roundabout at that location, so you're okay. And you always have the option to amend the proportionate share district later.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. I would entertain a motion for item number 3.
So moved.
Moved by Stepina,
Second.
second by Paulson. Discussion?
I will abstain from the OLCC permit applications. This is not a reflection of these establishments, businesses, or their owners. Rather, I object the fact that we do not have enough transportation options for people who visit these establishments. As a result, they may end up getting behind the wheel and putting themselves and others at risk. I'd like to highlight the broader public health responsibility that this council holds. The recent adoption of code allowing transportation networks is a step forward, but access remains limited, especially during late evening hours and in our upper valley. If we and our countywide partners are able to provide adequate transportation during late evenings and weekends, I will start approving OLCC applications.
Thank you, Gladys. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Action items with an added item. Hey, Randy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This was a last minute change order got added. On Columbia 8th to 10th, we're doing a sewer water replacement project. So there's always the sections of sidewalk that just get destroyed with that. And as the project's going along, there's a lot of routes that have lifted sidewalk along that section of road. So we've asked to expand the sidewalk replacement portion. This $56,399.04 change order represents those additions. For square foot price, it turns out to be a pretty good deal. It's always hard to get down there, decide where to stop on, where we have limited money. I was down there with Adam going through where we should draw the lines. I tripped over a part that we were going to save. So, I mean, we expanded that part. Just becomes a balance. So I think with the amount of sidewalks we're replacing now, doesn't make them perfect on both sides of the road. It eliminates those big tripping hazards that we have.
Thank you.
So we're requesting to authorize Abigail to be able to sign the $56,399, bringing the total job potential to $1,262,458.04. Forecasting is always hard on these. It's getting close to the end. I think we might be at the original contingency. We're bringing this, well, it's over 50,000 and then it's going to be really close. We're going to be over by a bit. So.
Thank you. I experienced this first behind and then in front of my house, and I feel fairly familiar with the concept of where do you call it good enough?
It's hard to.
Any questions for Randy? Thank you, Randy. So we have a motion.
I'll first say that I know that section very well, and comically enough, that's where I believe I met the mayor when I moved to Hood River in 2010. He said, "Are you a resident here?" I said, "Yeah, we just moved here." I said, "I'm running for mayor." And it was right in that section right there. So I move that we authorize the city manager to sign the Columbia Street Water and Wastewater Replacement Project change order for $56,399,000.
No.
Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Oh, gosh.
It's a big one.
So sorry. What page is it on, Randy? Oh, guys, I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
It's all right.
But it was 56,000.
It's the same thing. Yeah, that's why I thought it was that. All right, so strike that. I authorize, the suggested motion. I move that we authorize the city manager to sign the Columbia Street Water. This is.
But it's 56,000.
Oh, I said million. Okay, all right. I move that we authorize the city manager to sign the Columbia Street Water and Wastewater Replacement Project change order for $56,399.04, bringing the potential project cost to $1,262,458.04.
Moved by Stepina.
Eventually moved by Stepina, yes.
Second.
Second by Gaki. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Discussion items. Chris.
Great, good evening. So in your packet is the first quarter financial report for the first 3 months of the fiscal 2025-26 year. This is the financial data that is reported through September 30th of 2025. Q1 for the fiscal year 2026, general fund revenue was 1.8 million, which was about 16.5% of the annual budget. Budgeted revenue of $10.9 million. For the first quarter, actual revenue receipts were 16% below the same period 1 year earlier. However, I'd like to point out that revenue receipt factored heavily in the difference between the years. Particularly if you look at the charges for service revenue sector, there were some anticipated decreases in engineering income related to development approvals and the claim processing time charges in the GEMT program, which is the fee for service run through that subsidizes the ambulance revenues. Those two differences represent about 80% of the revenue difference from fiscal 2025. Again, there are other timing receipts that come into play. And so we will look to Q2 should there be any sort of actual trends. Based on what we're seeing currently, year-end estimates are within about 1% of budget expectations. Some adjustments have been made in some revenue categories, but again, there have not been any significant revenue adjustments, and we'll look to second quarter to see if anything warrants further adjustment. The general fund's 5 largest revenue sources are property tax, lodging tax, franchise fees, parking revenues, and ambulance charges. Those represent nearly 80% of the city's general fund revenue. It is therefore noteworthy that the three of these major categories, lodging tax, parking revenue, and ambulance charges, are each greater than the prior year return for the first quarter. The bulk of the city property taxes, I'll remind council, is the largest single source of general fund revenue, and those are received during our second quarter. General fund department expenditures are all within budget expectations through the first quarter. We have made no assumption changes with regards to any of the major expense categories for this quarter. Outside the general fund, in the utility funds, each of the revenue categories are consistent with or greater than budget expectations. We are seeing some increases in water revenues, which are in excess of 10% of prior year collections. But again, we'll wait till future quarters to see if there are any major trends. Year-over-year cash balances for all funds, which include the urban renewal districts, increased from $23.3 million in September 30th, 2024 to $24.8 million for September 30th, 2025. There is no motion related to this other than the review of the report, but I'm open to it. Would welcome your questions.
Thank you. This is not a put you on the spot question. This is truly just something I'm interested in. If you have anything additional to add with the measures 5 and 50 and the 3% increase and the RMV versus the taxable amount, is there anything interesting happening with our tax basis? I know I've seen some hockey stick graphs where, wow, our taxed property is worth so much more than it used to be. But with the 3%, it perhaps doesn't really come into play. But in terms of our projections for our biggest source of revenue, property taxes, is there anything scary or exciting happening with that you get to see more than like I do?
No, I mean, I think that, City of Hood River has the same issue as all municipalities in Oregon, right? So the property tax being received by the municipality and the assessment value is significantly below property values, right? I think that for Hood River, the hockey stick occurred sort of after 2020, right? With regards to the significant increase in property values that was sort of not translating to increase in tax revenue. The urban renewal districts that the city has set up is targeting that exact issue, right? The idea being that by freeing up vacant properties, which would increase the tax base, right? By encouraging redevelopment, which would increase the tax base, the city is encouraging that type of development, right? That overall increases that overall accelerates the underlying tax base. Now it does rest within the confines of the URA until such time as those districts sort of collapse back to the city. But as we've seen in part with the waterfront, as we've seen with downtown, as a long-term strategy, that does help sort of capture, right, some of that lost appreciation.
Thank you.
So I'm not directing, but something, or a couple weeks ago, SNAP benefits were paused for members of our community. A couple days ago, there were funds that were released. People had the ability to go and buy food. should we be in a position again where that happens again, as we talk about our finances, I think it's important to understand what sort of general fund monies would we have available? What is the right amount? Should that situation happen again? Or as Counselor Stepino was mentioning earlier, some resources specific to supporting some of our very vulnerable community members. So my question to you, Chris, is as we continue to move forward, what sort of, how much could we fiscally donate to Columbia Gorge Food Bank, for example, or a similar organization that is helping our community members that would maybe,
Yeah.
we haven't discussed this, like a one-time donation that the city would give?
Yeah, this is difficult to answer, particularly in the first quarter, right? So, you know, using last fiscal year as an example, I think we went into the fiscal year anticipating, including contingency, including transfers out of the general fund. I think we went into the budget anticipating an operating deficit of somewhere around, call it $500,000 to $800,000. We finished the fiscal year roughly with a balanced budget, right? The idea being is that certain contingency items weren't spent. I think that because of the additional activity in the building fund is one example, right? Transfers out of the general fund were less. So in that situation, you know, there were sort of quote unquote excess funds, right? That could have gone to, you know, other charitable contributions. In the first quarter of this year, when we're looking at our sort of budget and our budget underwriting, you know, we're looking at $1.7 million deficit projected in the budget. And again, that is related to sort of items that are held aside for contingency, items that are held aside for transfers, or we actually have a, you know, sort of funds that are held aside for a loan program, right, for housing. As we move through in future quarters, we'll understand sort of what may or may not be spent. Those would be dollars that could be reallocated if the council wishes. At the same time, the council can also always make the decision to spend contingency dollars, right, towards a project. I will note that in our budgets, you know, we do have funds that are, you know, obviously designated for the temporary shelters, right? We have funds in our utilities programs for, you know, sort of low income utilities assistance. We have the program, you know, that was with Pacific Corp, right? That is also sort of low income assistance. So, you know, we do have those programs. Another option would be to discussions of expanding those. Those would be outside the general fund, obviously, right? But there, you know, there are tools. It will be sort of decisions as to where does the council elect to spend money. Right. But I guess, sorry, that was a very long-winded way of saying that there are no excess funds, right, that are sort of available to be earmarked specifically for donations or sort of you know, sort of grants.
Thank you. I appreciate the response. And as we know, right, some of our vulnerable community members are going through, all of us, right, are going through some financial hardships. And it's good to understand where we continue to support existing or where current dollars are going now. I'm having a loss of words. Should this situation happen again at a federal government level, right, then we should, I guess what I'm trying to say is how can we be a little bit more proactive in this area and start talking about how do we pull some funds to the side? Should we be in a situation again? And we don't necessarily have to have a council meeting in order for staff to have an understanding, okay, X amount of dollars are now going to go towards the food bank, for example. Curious to hear other thoughts.
Well, I'll add one thing, sorry. You know, that is something that also can be discussed in the next budget cycle. Right. I mean, so just as we have specific dollars that are allocated towards specific programs, you know, at council's direction, with supporting of staff, you know, we can try to put in sort of undesignated, right, charitable donations. That would then be sort of, you know, based on what the needs are for that particular fiscal year, could then be allocated, and it would not come from contingency, right? It would be something that would be in the budget.
Do you need direction to state that? Or do you need a couple of us to say, yes, let's do that for the next budget cycle? I think we should absolutely do that, but
Yeah.
still being aware that we may have a ask between now and then.
No, I mean, we can, I'll have further discussions
Okay.
with Abigail.
Great.
And if that's something that we just want to include in the city budget, then we can initiate those conversations at that time.
Okay.
That's fine.
I have several decades of experience as nonprofit staff and board member. And I'm here to tell you, giving money away is a lot of work. And in the decades I've been on this council, we've had this conversation a number of times and largely decided to not be a grant-making organization, sort of in the stick to our knitting argument. Of course, I hope everyone understands I grapple with these issues. The president has a lot of power, and I hope that we can all live to fight another day, both by not sticking our head up excessively and getting it cleaved off, and by not going broke trying to backfill healthcare and nutrition because we don't have enough money. So these are difficult decisions. And I'm not the one who lost SNAP benefits, but I try to be a responsible steward of our residents' funds. Doug?
I agree with both what Councilor Rivera and Mayor Blackburn said. It's difficult. There's a lot of challenges with measures 5 and 50 and actions by the federal government to be able to give the people of this city, what might be considered basic services, right? I think when it comes to food, that's we've never seen something quite this horrible in many of our lifetimes. So yeah, I agree that there should be some sort of contingency allocated towards, disasters, because that's effectively what that is, while bearing in mind that we can't make up all the shortcomings of, the deficiencies that we have because of the state tax structure or the federal government's playing politics with people's lives. So I think there should be something, but it should be measured. Great.
Great.
I also agree with my fellow counselors. I would agree with Mayor Blackburn that if we get into awarding or categorizing funds as fully discretionary, this becomes a very, very tricky fiscal issue, and we would be putting ourselves in a position to backfill all kinds of manners of things, all kinds of obligations that aren't necessarily even necessarily in our charter or our direction. And we would, as a consequence, be taking funds that we strategically could be allocating for other purpose and using it to do those things. Those are strategic decisions we could choose to do. However, I would caution us to have a very, very full understanding of the consequence of allocating funds in that manner. Unprecedented times for sure.
I'll make one quick other just
Go
for
ahead,
the,
Chris,
for the
and then
benefit of
Amanda, go ahead,
council.
please.
Yeah, for the benefit of council. The low income assistance utilities program that we have is based on income. And so presumably upon the opening of Mariposa Village, we will have a sort of a greater population that will qualify for that program. So I think that one of the things that we can do, when it does come time to talk about at the next budget, is do a better job articulating sort of what is the existing programs that the city is, sort of the city has in their budget and has been executing, and sort of what that means as far as sort of dollars and cents, so that it has a sort of to Grant's point, right? It's I think the city is doing more than it's aware of, right? In certain instances, that is being administrated. So.
Do we have like a known number to like 37 people availing of themselves of utility assistance? for
Yeah,
something?
as of this last month, it was around 110.
And would there be space in the social media bandwidth to, seems like a very sort of timely thing. Hey, you know, unprecedented times, all the things we're saying up here, but in fact, the city does have this program that's
Yeah.
targeted at our lower income residents, and please know about it and come in and sign up.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Amanda?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I like the idea of having some sort of fund, and I like the disaster kind of label of it, so it's not super specific. And, you know, I don't think anybody saw this coming, so who knows what might be coming at us in the future. So, yeah, I support that idea.
That's
I just want to give another example, and I can't remember what city is doing this, where they didn't give specific money for food banks, but they did waive like power bill and water fees for those that were SNAP recipients. So there are other ways that we could, again, be innovative around the level of assistance that we can offer. I hear my peers' sentiments around, you know, the spectrum of what we shouldn't, or how we should be careful, and I agree. But I also believe that we are in challenging times that we haven't seen before, and that as we look at all of our goals, what we're discussing right now ties into all of that. So thanks.
Thanks for that, Gladys. That pinged an idea in me, and I apologize, Bill Newton and others in the schools if I get this wrong, but I think there's some sort of a situation where certain schools at a certain level of participation in free and reduced lunch, they just say, you know what, let's presumptively say free and reduced lunch, and then every student just gets it, and they like quit checking cards and stuff, and they sort of streamline that decision-making so that kids won't be hungry. And so if you're on utility assistance, then you get the reduced water, something. I mean, there are things that are in our control. Back to where we are receiving this report from Chris. There's no action needed, but any other questions on this topic? Thank you, Chris, very much. Next is SDC exemption. Abigail.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You might remember at your last city council meeting, I asked if you would be interested in updating chapter 12 of the municipal code that deals with system development charges to expand housing projects that might be eligible for SDC exemption. So I heard an interest in that, so worked with staff to bring you, it's really only 2 sentences in the code that we're looking at, and I gave you a couple different options of 3 parts of the code. I thought language might be updated, but definitely want to hear your feedback. And we'll take your direction to update ordinance language if desired and bring that back to you at the next meeting with a public hearing.
For some reason, the image, I guess it was some cartoon where you try to let one sheep out of the paddock and then boom, the whole flock gets out because you're trying to squeeze the door open. I think it was clear that we want to have our rules permit Habitat for Humanity, but I don't want to accidentally let the flock out, so.
So I identified 3 pieces of language that I thought could use feedback or clarification. So if you want, I can just run through those, and then if anything else comes up in addition. So they are located on page 60 of your packet. And the first one is the current language that says low income housing, but that is not defined either in the chapter or in this particular section. I think we tend to say affordable housing now, but regardless, would think it would be helpful to have defined what you mean by affordable housing or low income housing. So I've offered 2 options that we tend to use as standards, 80% and 120% of area and median income. Habitat is aiming for 80% with their project, but you know others such as Big River Community Land Trust is using 120. So looking for a little bit input on that. Can stop and pause for comments, or I can go through all of them.
Amanda.
This seems really basic, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around the difference between like the 80 and the 120 and which one's better or
Oh,
worse or like more or less or?
sure. Yeah, 100% is the area median, right? So 120 are people who make more and 80 is people who make a little bit less than that. And if you gave me time, I actually will look to Chris. You can maybe, if you know those numbers or could Google them.
I took a photo at the Economic Summit.
Oh, great.
And this is, statistics and economic, but they were telling us about per tax return. So that's like a family, right? It's like a family. And the reason I took the picture was because for a family, and they don't say how big the family is, there was a huge difference between Wasco and Hood River. I was totally amazed. So my memory was the average in Wasco County was like 60,000 annual income per tax return. So that's a family of one to any number. And in Hood River, it was like 113,000. So that's, I'm going to say, is 100% of area median income. So 120 is more than that. 120% is more than that. 80% is less than that.
So if we do 120, affordable housing is for people making more than the median?
120% of 113 is like $135,000 a year.
And then you would qualify for affordable housing if you make more than the median?
You'd qualify for some of these programs like deferring SDCs or not like free anything, but
Right.
you would qualify for some things. Or we could decide we prefer 80% of that would be like $90,000 a year would be the cutoff.
Right, okay. It just seems like, I don't know if this is true, but in my mind, it seems like median income would be able to afford a house, but that's completely false, maybe, like.
Well, but more than the 80% person.
More than, yes, for sure.
And
But I like the inclusive, like, I like including more. I guess that's the better way to go. I don't know, but.
to me, 120 is too high. I'm not that excited about
Mhm.
facilitating that price point.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, Grant.
Sure. We, not that long ago, changed SCC rates to calculate based off of square footage. So units that get built, if they are smaller, they will pay less in SCC fees. Correct?
Generally, yes.
Potentially, exactly.
Yes. So, but in effect, we have created less SDC fees for smaller, more affordable housing already by calculating SDCs based on square footage, theoretically, as opposed to size of house. So from my perspective, this may be chasing after a non-existent problem unless we are targeting these specific groups and aiming to waive their SDCs entirely, which is perhaps a different philosophical question of, do we want to take these particular groups of people and not charge them anything at all? We still we have a whole system that we still need to build and maintain, and without necessarily any other mechanism to build and maintain said system outside of SCCs and some fees. Systematically long-term, I do not think it is necessarily structurally responsible to pick and choose who we subjectively waive fees for. That's my opinion. We have already, as mentioned, reduced fees based on affordability per square footage. And I think without seeing results of that, I don't see why the drive to necessarily adjust more immediately.
Doug.
I think that we've had discussions in the past about how difficult it is to sort of support development of housing in the 80 to 120 range. It's like if you're under 80 and you go down to 20, There's federal programs. If you're below 20, there's really nothing. You know, we've talked about that sort of thing. You know, might this be a mechanism to be able to have housing developed in that 80 to 120 range where we're seeing almost no development, is what I would say. I think that that's worth bearing some thought.
I'm curious to hear then from Doug or Counselor Stepina or Polson. Out of the two options, which ones would you support that have been given to us? After everything you both have just said.
Option 2 for me. I'd like to get the numbers to be able to present to everybody, but I know Will has definitely spoken to us about that being a challenging range, and I think this might be one way to address that. Also thinking about what Grant's saying, if we all of a sudden see tons of development there, ratchet it back would be my thought if it's becoming more problem than it is worth, but I don't foresee that happening with the amount of development we're not having in that area. So 2 for me.
Others in favor of option 2? Others in favor of option 2? I don't see any thumbs. I see 0 thumbs. Or that's not a thumb. There's a thumb. I got 2 thumbs for 120. Yes? 3 thumbs for 120. I'm not so much a 120, and I don't see Grant.
I feel like I said, including more housing is better, but
For me, supporting people making $135,000 a year is not a top priority. Ben?
That's for a family of 4, right? Not an individual.
I mean, it's one tax return according to that statistic. So like, yeah, family.
I'll say what I've said about other housing related things like that. I would love if we got to a point in the city of Hood River where this was a problem because too much of this was being built. You know, like I understand the trepidation, I really do. And I was reading this, it's kind of like, you know, I don't, you know, most cities are doing 80%, I think is what it said in there, but we do have the most like expensive housing, you know, pretty much in the state of Oregon. You know, we also have an area that's just getting richer and richer and richer. So I don't know how that factors in terms of, you know, the 120% area median income, but again, I'm more inclined to be on the, you know, more liberal side of this. If this is going to spur development, if that's like ends up being, well, we got to scale it back, then correct me if I'm wrong, we can just scale it back just like we're scaling it up right now.
Right, you can amend the ordinance,
Mhm.
just like you would do now, so you'd have discussion, public hearing, and 2 readings.
Doug?
To me, if we go with say 80, it's restrictive in the amount of, you know, I say this all the time, what's capital A affordable housing, what's small a affordable housing. This I feel like we know that there is, you know, quote unquote workforce housing in that 180 to 120 bracket that we need here. And I think that this is one option to be able to help spur development. And to the mayor's point, if every sheep starts running, then maybe we consider that, but I feel like that would be a good problem to have. I feel like the amount that they would save is a drop in the bucket to potentially stave off building a McMansion versus that, but I think it's a tool that we can put in there.
I'll say again, I'm hoping to see 4 thumbs for Doug's point. 1, 2, 3, 4 thumbs for Doug.
Great, thank you. And I want to note, you know, I use the word exemption throughout this, but I think our past practice has been that we generally don't waive the SDC fees. The city has paid the SDC fees out of our affordable housing reserve or our construction excise tax. So recognize that, yes, the system still has to be built. We don't want to put those dollars on other developers, right? I mean, that's part of SDC law, is you can't require developers to subsidize others. So the city pays them out of its own funds. Okay, so keep going. The current language, and this is what was the most trip up for Habitat for Humanity, was that it needs to receive federal funding. So they came to me and said, we've been trying to find at least $1 in federal funding in the current administration, not as hard to find. And then we talked about maybe, I don't know why the city had that particular restriction. It probably made sense at a particular time, but a survey of other cities did not find anyone else who limited only to federal funding. So I have two options for you if you wish to expand. One could be to receive some other government funding, which could be federal, state, or local. Or you could remove all references to a funding source. So for example, if someone donated land and left money to a group like Habitat or Big River or another housing group, if they came to you and asked for an exemption, but they didn't have any government money attached to that.
I was surprised that Habitat didn't qualify under our current imperfect rules because I gotta believe that they're a nonprofit and I would consider that federal funding because they're tax exempt.
So
Are they a
That is an
nonprofit? Are they a 501c3?
Yep. They don't, and not thought about that as active funding. They don't pay, but they don't receive funding. So I guess it's a question of what do you mean by the word funding?
Nice.
I would be up for the removing all references just to broaden the language and not be so restrictive.
Doug,
I would also, provided that staff does not see potential issues with that. Does staff feel like there could be, let me ask you this, is staff confident with that option? Okay, I'm seeing a nod. Hate for the city staff to be caught in a position they don't want to be in because of those references being removed. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm also in favor of option 2 then.
Amanda, did
Also in favor.
option 2? We got enough. I'm sorry, Grant, did you want to speak? We got.
Great. Great, thank you all. And then the third one is, and you note that in both of the options, I just changed it to, it says deed restriction right now. And I said deed restriction or covenant, just to broaden the language about how the restriction is placed on a property. That it be affordable for, your current language is 40 years. And you could choose to keep 40 years. Or I suggested 30 years, or you could choose for a lower date. So I think I shared that 40 years was the highest that I saw in my survey of, about 15 cities across the state. Not a ton of cities have a program like this. 40 was the most, 30 and 20 tend to be pretty common. So do you want to, now the Habitat Project, I think, is affordable for at least 60 years. So they would qualify under your current language, but if you wanted to loosen that up.
No loosening.
No loosening.
Nope.
We got
If
two.
we're gonna go also like on the high end with 120, I think it's gotta be max out the length.
We got 2 thumbs for no loosening, 3 thumbs for no loosening, 4 thumbs for no loosening. Thank you. Well done, people.
Great.
Decidering.
Excellent. Thank you. Any
uh,
other
Animal
comments?
shelter.
Okay, so I am looking for you to give me an official motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
Thank you.
and I said to be developed during the discussion, but I think if to recap, you're looking at defining affordable housing as 120 AMI for this purpose, no reference to funding sources, and can keep the deed restriction of 40 years. So
That's what I think we said.
So,
Yeah, that's what we said.
all right.
Thank you.
I think,
but you
if
wanna-
they would take a motion, it would be great to have that on the record.
If somebody said so moved, that'd be perfect.
So moved.
Grant, sorry,
Second,
second by Grant. Discussion.
just to clarify, this is not restricted just to Habitat for Humanity. Anybody can use this if we vote on it and agree.
Yes.
Anyone. Okay.
Yes, can have
Just
access to it. I think.
just clarifying for everyone that anyone can use this.
Anyone who qualifies.
And
Anyone can try to use it.
the qualifications are AMI of 120% and a deed restriction or covenant
For 40 years.
of 40 years.
Mhm.
Yes. Just clarifying. Thanks.
Great. All right. You will see this as a public
Wait,
hearing. and-
yeah,
Hold on.
We have
We need to
to,
vote.
Moved and seconded. We are
Thank
now in
you.
discussion. Thank you, Abigail. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Abigail.
Great, thank you, sir. So your last topic for today is just an overview of animal shelter services. So some weeks ago, I think in council comments, Councilor Stefina said he'd like to have a conversation and saw enough of you nod. So provided you with some basic information about the animal shelter services and happy to answer any questions.
Doug.
I was gonna say, I don't have any specific questions, but I would like to, discuss.
I would be curious to hear, and I don't know if this is something that has been discussed already.
Oh, shoot.
What would it look like to operationalize from the last time this was presented to us as a council? Our local police was having to be involved with a lot of the after hours. And so I'm curious to hear more about that, or if that was already discussed, like what sort of impact that would have
Mhm.
on our
Thank you.
current police officers.
And I want to I've separated these two topics, but I know that they are definitely intermixed. Tonight, the information you have in your memo is about animal shelter services as opposed to animal control services, which I think is the intergovernmental agreement you're referring to. And Chief Holste is here in the audience, and I can also share some information about animal control services. I'm waiting for some statistics from them, and then I can share just an overview of. They sent me statistics, but I had some questions about them, so I hope to get those soon. I did, if I can just take one more second, since I sent the memo out earlier this week or last week, I did get some clarification from the county that I had said in my background, I had said that the funds that came from the Hikari estate were expected to be depleted in July 2026. I heard from the county that there are some funds there, sounds like about $35,000 or so, that they expect to carry over into next fiscal year. So this county has some funds, definitely only one more year left, and not the full amount that had been committed in the past.
You don't seem to have any questions.
I just wanted to have some discussion based on the fact that we had, I feel like at this point, you're asking, you presented this information. Do you have any questions about the information? I don't. I'd like to
Great.
discuss the information and the implications for that.
Perfect.
Abigail, thank you for preparing this. I mean, I think this started from, the shelter is in trouble. How do shelters commonly operate? We had really no idea. How in other cities they operate, what sort of funding they receive. We know that there's a complication in that, we have an IGA with the county that allows us to work with the county to contract for animal services, but we could not contract, for example, with Hood River Adopt a Dog to provide them funding for kennels. Other municipalities, you might see, the municipality where, Chief Holste and the Hood River Police could bring animals to the shelter, and there are City of Hood River paid for kennels. What we don't have the option to do that now. I think that what I would like to do is discuss with the county a less restrictive IGA for us to be able to consider that. Our only other option is doing exactly what we were talking about earlier, which is making a donation, right? Which we would rather have it be operationalized and less like, oh, hey, Chris, can we have some contingency funds because the shelter's in trouble? And I think the shelter would be better served by having some more predictability if the City of Hood River were to contribute anything in an operational way. So I think the first impediment that we have is really working with the county to be able to understand how could our IGA be amended to allow for us to do something that gives us a little bit more control in terms of ensuring that we're providing funding and frankly, just getting services for that funding that's being provided. I know we've had some spirited debate in the past about the animal control element. That's not really what we're talking about here. This is something new completely. I think they are related though, right? We're just not able to talk about it prior because of the IGA. So my hope would be that we would start there and have discussions with the county about the IGA to be able to free up our restriction to be able to contribute any operational dollars towards the shelter. And I think we should go from there. And discuss in the budget cycles how much the city might be willing to contribute, et cetera. Yeah, that's my hope for where we go from here. I don't want to live in a town where our police have nowhere to bring animals that they've collected, or tell people just like hang on to the dog until like, you know, a Good Samaritan that runs a nonprofit shows up someday. It seems like a very necessary service for the community. And as we were discussing earlier, funding is difficult to come by. So I'm not saying that we should pay for everything, but I think there were more municipalities, organizations, et cetera, willing to donate than maybe we're all adding to that bucket versus having one take on all the responsibility.
Can you guys help me remember, like a longer time ago, maybe a year ago, there was, I remember the question before us being, the county would like us to substantially increase the amount we pay for our contract with them for the sheltering the animals. And I remember us not liking that, but that didn't lead like directly to this. There was something happened on the way to that. Doug.
Well, I think that part of our issue was that they wanted more money for animal control, but animal control is getting the animal to the shelter. After that,
Yep.
none of our funds were going to the shelter, just to the county for them to get the animals there.
Thank you.
Our current IGA runs through, I believe, August of 2026. We signed a 2-year IGA, so we're in year 2 of that agreement.
Thank you. Okay, then Glennis.
I was just kind of curious, so, you know, it seems like it was known that this fund was going to be depleted, and I guess I'm just kind of a little bit curious of how it got to this point, if this was known to be, you know, on the horizon. Now it seems like a, you know, kind of quasi-emergency kind of situation here. Just a little bit surprised by that.
Thank you, Counselor. I don't have a good sense of the history myself.
Gladys and then Doug, unless you have the answer to that question.
I don't have the answer, but I know that the answer has been difficult for changing board members and volunteers and everybody to wrap their mind around it. It's a volunteer sort of out of the kindness of your heart sort of situation over there. And it's been difficult for newer board members to understand what happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or what that fund is, how much they were getting, just because I think it's, you know, it's more or less like in kind sort of, in a way where like, you know, the county's providing the building and it's not clear what their funding sources are. So, you know, I think that possibly they've gotten further on that, but I think it would be helpful to hear, you know, from the county, from Hood River Adopt a Dog, whether it's a memo or a presentation here, you know, where they are on understanding that. And, you know, I've heard the funds are gone and now we might have some funds and all that sort of stuff. I know everybody's doing their best due diligence to be able to understand the situation. But I understand why it's kind of haphazard because of that sort of volunteer nature over there and the sort of in-kind sort of relationship versus like, this is what we fund you in hard dollars.
I am open to having Abigail continuing the conversations to better understand the IGA so that we can understand some of the operational challenges that are also connected.
Do we need a motion? No motion needed.
No?
Thanks, everybody.
So if I can just get a quick summary, I and Chief Olsey will continue to work with the Sheriff's Office and the county administrator on just clarifying some of the questions that you'll have with the IGA. With that kind of, that being the target, that's not till August. But I also heard when I prepared the budget for next year to look at a possible donation or like putting money in, being ready for possible change in the next fiscal year.
Got two hands up, Gladys and then Doug.
Well, I think that I'm trying to understand the ask.
Mhm.
Is the ask that the city of Hood River take on Hood River Adopt a Dog, that we become the landlord and they are our tenant? That's not right. And so that's what I'm trying to understand. In order for us to talk about monies and operations later on, what is the ask? And that's what I'm having a hard time understanding right now. And I recognize that you all need to continue these conversations and talk about what are the current limitations that impact the operations moving forward. And then
Right.
should that happen, what sort of impact is that going to have on you and your team? As the last time this was presented, it was very clear that your staff is, or chief staff is taking the calls after a certain hour and on the weekends and, you know, all of that. So I think for me, I would just like to better understand, what is the ask moving forward? Is it just that we become the landlords, or that we help
Mhm.
them with financial backing?
Yeah, and I don't have clarity on, I would say, clarity on what is the specific ask, but also who's asking. Is it Hood River Adopt a Dog, or is the county? I think Counselor Stupino might be closer connected than I am on that.
My last comment is, moving forward, like, is there any sort of additional fundraising? I recognize that there was an event at the ruins that took place, so is the expectation, or is the city gonna be fronting money or supporting, in addition to other fundraising efforts that will continue to happen?
I think if I understand the problem correctly, I think there's a couple things. One related to what Councilor Rivera just said. So I don't think that it's necessarily that the city becomes the landlord or anything like that, but we do have a restrictive IGA, right? So how do we work with the county to ensure that the next IGA is ensuring that we can have money that is going towards the shelter? I would look to, Chief Holste and the Hood River Police to be able to sort of advise us on what they think is going to ensure that we are getting the most services from animal control, and also being able to, have funding directly support Hood River Adopt a Dog. In the interim period before August 2026, when the IGA expires, so it's kind of like, let's be proactive so that the county doesn't think we want to do the same IGA, and why. But in addition to that, in this sort of I guess, crisis mode that's happening, how do we support, fundraising efforts when Hood River Adopt a Dog does do like a big ruins type of thing? And do we need to consider, based on the severity, maybe a one-time donation or something like that, charitable donation, prior to the IGA being reformed into something else that's more beneficial for what we pay?
Thank you for clarifying that.
Is that clear? Like,
Yeah, one other thing that I'm thinking of that other counselors, especially that weren't here a couple of years ago when we talked about this prior, that I think may be helpful is everybody in the city also pays into animal control already through county taxes. But what we receive in terms of level of service already through that contract and animal control, and then is that level of service appropriate, or is through our IGA and whatnot, do we expect a higher level of service? Are we willing to contribute more to have a higher level of service than we may be realizing through the IGA?
yeah, and Grant, I agree. And I think that discussion sort of led us to, well, we do so much of our own animal control already. Couldn't we just use that money to fund the shelter? And the IGA prevents that, right? So that's sort of the quandary that we're in.
Yeah. So trying to make sure that people who perhaps weren't here for that discussion also
Right.
understand that context.
And
Yeah, thanks.
If I may, I would clarify, I don't think it's the IGA that prohibits the city. It's the lease that Hood River Adopt a Dog has with the county. So we're not party to that, but we are impacted by that.
Right. Thank you.
And I believe they're on a yearly lease at this point.
Okay, Abigail, you were summarizing.
Yes. So I think I heard work with the county, keep working with chief to get ready for the renegotiation of that IGA with some of the points that you've brought up. Then I heard, a desire for a one-time fundraising support this year. I don't know if that has a majority, and then also to be considering increased levels, whether that's for animal control IGA or for directly to Hood River Adopt-A-Dog in next year's budget. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
People happy with what our city manager thinks she's doing? Perfect. Thank you.
I would just add one thing, just continue to work with Hood River Adopt-A-Dog, and Hood River Adopt-A-Dog should feel that as they understand more about what their needs are and what their shortfalls are and what their lease situation is, all that stuff, to just keep us in the loop, or the county as well, just to make sure that we understand this unfolding situation as it unfolds.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Thanks, everybody. That takes us to the city recorder.
Your Honor, I'd like to entertain a motion for the first reading of ordinance 2093 by title only.
So moved. Moved by Stupina.
Second.
Second by Rivera. Go ahead, Jen.
Counselor Polson,
Aye.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Stupina,
Aye.
Counselor Mitchell,
Aye.
Counselor Jakey,
Aye.
Your Honor.
Aye.
Ordinance 2093, an ordinance amending Title II, Administration and Personnel, Chapter 2.36, City Planning Commission of the Hood River Municipal Code by updating membership qualifications to comply with ORS 227.030.
Ordinance 2093 has passed its first reading by title only and will have its second reading in 2 weeks. City manager comments, Abigail.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no updates for you today.
Do we have an executive session tonight?
We do not.
Cool. We're going to power through then. We are not going to. Okay. Committee reports, Amanda.
I don't have anything, I haven't had any committee meetings, but I did attend the MCED Symposium on Friday. That was based on resiliency. So that was really a good event, my first symposium that I've ever been to. I just want to thank MCED for putting that on, and it was really informative and good discussions. So,
Grant?
No committee reports. I was at the economic symposium as well.
Doug?
No committee reports, but I am in the midst of speaking to the League of Oregon Cities about representing us on the Cybersecurity, Telecommunications, and AI Policy Board, which will meet several times. So I threw my hat in the ring and see if that we do that. But ongoing conversations. But
Wow. Thanks for volunteering to help in that way.
yeah, of course. But no other committee reports.
Glenn?
Nothing for me.
Ben?
CAT has a board meeting on November 19th. Not sure what's on the agenda yet, but part of it is a second public hearing regarding Gorge to Mountain Express fee changes. And full disclosure, I work for Mount Hood Meadows, and that route does service that area. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks. I don't think I have any comments. Comments from you, Ben?
Yeah, Councilor Rivera brought up earlier about, saying nothing in terms of regarding the ICE discussion. And, I'm sorry for not saying anything during that particular point in time. I was caught off guard by that being an agenda item at the top of the hour. And I honestly don't really have a whole lot to add to it. And a lot of times when there's something like, an agenda item like that, where I don't have anything more to add or belabor the point on something, I won't say anything, but that probably wasn't the time to do it. And I hope you didn't take that as lack of caring on my part. Couple of things about that. it's hard to feel like, you know, or to be a leader in this community and feel like, as I do, that, you know, a lot of these things that there's nothing you can do about. And maybe that's not the right way for me to think about it. You know, I feel like one of my weaknesses as a counselor is that sometimes I, you know, struggle to come up with ideas, but I feel like I'm good at analyzing some of the, you know, some of the different things that come before us and making decisions about that. So it was really good to hear both you and Doug talk about, you know, what are some ways that we can possibly do stuff about this, because it's hard when it feels like all these things are just relentless and it's one thing after the other and those things change all the time. That extends to the, you know, the food stamps conversation. It's like that could be totally different tomorrow. And it's really challenging that, you know, that we as little old Hood River, you know, trying to take on those issues. And it's challenging when I feel like the city alone has enough of its own things that it's working on, but you know, these are things that are having massive impacts on the people who live in this city. I almost said citizens, people who live in the city, residents. And it's hard not to feel duty bound to do something about that, even if this is something that the federal government should be getting off its ass and doing itself. And the last thing that I'll say about this is, you know, there was a couple conversations in recent city council meetings about institutional neutrality. And this is a great example of why I don't think that is a good idea. And I'm glad we did not pick up the mantle of that, because we're dealing with that right now. So anyway, I'll make sure to speak up in the future about that so people know that I do care.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Ben, I know that you care. I know you, and I believe that. It's also important that our viewers and our citizens, our residents understand that as well. And for those that don't get to have conversations with us as often, right? Sometimes silence can be taken as something else. And you know, I had organized my thoughts. I do my best to do that prior to meetings, and I had prepared a statement, and I appreciate Mayor for bringing it up first thing as we continue to move forward, because we have to keep speaking up. And let me tell you, the amount of emails that I send to a lot of our peers, some of you have been CC'd on those, around language needs and accessibility, and how we need to make sure that all our information is in English and in Spanish, and that we need to be proactive when it comes to conversations like this, or even food. Like that's what we signed up for, right? Like, and that we have to keep doing it. And there are moments that even though my voice shakes and I feel nervous, we have a responsibility to continue having these conversations and to continue bringing these issues up, even when people roll their eyes, because we represent so many individuals when we sit up here, and we cannot expect the same thing we did last time to work this time around, given the federal administration that we are under, and just the level of unpredictability and the level of freaking cruelty that is happening right now that we are seeing. And I hope that I'd say like this is the worst it can get, but who knows? And we have to keep saying something. We have to keep doing something, whether that means money, whether that means that we're saying you can't use any of our public facilities for any of your business. We will always have to keep doing more.
Thank you, guys. Doug?
Yeah, I will just echo that. Thank you, Mayor Blackburn for allowing us to add the agenda item at the beginning. I know it's, and as Counselor Mitchell articulated, it's difficult for us to know what to do. I think Counselor Rivera said it best. It's really just, ensuring that the people that we represent know that we see them, that we hear them. And yeah, can we stop ICE? No, but what can we do? They need to know that we're working on whatever it is that we can do, and we need to listen to them and speak with the community members that are out there organizing. I want to thank the Hood River Latino Network, Tamira, others that are out there on the front lines doing that work. I'd like to help them in any way that we can in our stead.
Grant?
Like Counselor Mitchell, do not take my silence earlier as not speaking up or lack of caring or whatever. Sometimes I'm just thinking about something. So sometimes I can be pensive and take a moment to think about an issue. I agree that there are certain things that we are restricted in doing, as Councilor Stepina mentioned, the actions that we can't take, but that does not mean that there are actions we cannot take. We can articulate clearly what we cannot do very, very easily. But that leaves a window of things that are accessible and available to us. And we could look at those ideas. I don't necessarily want to sit here and prescribe what those things are without talking to our community partners and that sort of thing. So without getting some more of that sort of detail and feedback, I earlier was thinking about getting that feedback before being prescriptive in terms of saying what to do next. I understand that it is difficult when something happens to respond in a fast manner. Some of these things is difficult to do in elected government and bodies such as these. You can look at it as a flaw or a strength of democracy itself. I optimistically look at it as a strength. And that's going to be up to us to resolve. But that's up to us to do. So those are my thoughts about that. Regarding public comment around this issue, there's certainly guidance that's out there for small businesses as to options that are available to all small businesses regarding plans or contingencies or things that can do should businesses choose to take advantage of those resources. So I believe we have contacts or could put people in touch with others to provide those. So, those are my thoughts for now about that.
Thank you, Grant. Amanda?
I just want to, just show my appreciation for having this discussion tonight. And it's a little bit, I don't feel like I don't really have anything to add from what I said earlier. But I'm really glad that we're talking about it, and I look forward to seeing what we can come up with as creative ideas to help in any way we can. So, but I don't have anything else to say about that. And this seems like feel like I'm Claudia, and we don't talk about roundabouts right now. I did have a couple other things to say, and I don't feel like I feel like that's like the most important thing. So I really just want to honor that. And I have city things. So I just want to mention really quick, I was able to do a bike ride with Megan Ramey a couple weeks ago. Was from the Safe Routes School, and I felt like that was really it was a really good experience for me. And hearing what like she is kind of advocating for a lower e-bike riding age and differentiating between assisted e-bikes and e-motos. So I really was, yeah, appreciative of that. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was something that like I'm curious about. I wonder if anybody else will talk about this is in lieu of parking fees. I feel like with the recent hotel opening and then a potential hotel development downtown, like a lot of people's big concern that I hear is parking. And I know we lowered the in lieu of parking fee, I think like 2018, 19 or 20, something like that, because it felt restrictive of development. But I also, from my understanding, the in lieu of parking fee is supposed to be collected so we can build a parking solution. And if with the lowered fees that we're charging now, like we're never going to get enough money to build this parking structure. So I was like, I'm interested in maybe revisiting that, the fee structure for that. And I don't know if anybody else is.
Thank you, Amanda, for bringing that to us. This is a thumbs opportunity. Are folks interested in putting on the agenda this, reviewing the history of it and taking another look at the in lieu parking fee? I got one thumb from Gladys. 2, 3, yep, let's put it on the agenda. Thanks, Amanda.
I think Abigail mentioned it's coming up in the development code next meeting.
Right.
But also those meetings are so full and heavy that I don't know. It's like the time to discuss that, but maybe it's. I don't know.
We'll get it. Yeah, we'll figure it.
That sounds great. I think, so as you mentioned, Counselor, your next meeting is module 4 of the development code update. So anticipate that will be long and detailed, and maybe we can see from there if questions were answered or if you need more information after that meeting. So be happy to provide that, and I will let staff and I will talk about how to share that information with you and what policy questions we can bring forward for you. But we'll do that, I think, after your development code conversation on the 24th.
I think that's the end of our agenda. Is there anything else I've forgotten? Anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned.